Today on Politics Unplugged, it was a bad week for Donald Trump. After doing everything to keep the Epstein Files closed, Congress told the president it's time to open them up. President Trump's plan to tilt the 2026 midterms in favor of Republicans took a Texas-sized hit. And finally, POTUS sounded off on Senator Mark Kelly and a handful of other Democrats, calling for them to possibly face the hangman's noose. The panel breaks it all down now on Politics Unplugged.
Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. This week, we saw President Trump take a remarkable loss after weeks of fighting to the release of the Epstein Files and trying to paint them as a Democratic hoax. The president lost the battle, and Congress voted nearly unanimously to release the files on convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. And here to talk all about that is Ron Hansen from the Arizona Republican. I want to thank you for joining us here today. And, you know, when I say a remarkable loss, I mean, it just seemed like, at the beginning of the year, if you would have told me that the president's first real legislative loss of his second term would have been against Tom Massey, a little-known congressman from Kentucky, I would have said, no way is that going to happen. How did we get here?
Yeah, I think the political inertia has been running against the administration on the Jeffrey Epstein matter. We saw last year during the campaign the president sort of fumbling a question with Fox News about releasing these documents. It kind of fell through the cracks for a while. It sprang back up earlier this year with the alleged release of, the complete information to a lot of friendly podcasters and such. That wasn't good enough, and the sands have just kind of run through the hourglass on this. The president can no longer kick the can down the road. The public is not with him on this. Now, neither are Republicans. When
you hear people say and report that the president had pulled out all the stops to try to stop this from moving forward, I mean, it seems like they really did. I mean, when you start looking at what Congress did, I mean, Congress took an extended vacation that went through the shutdown, did not bring them back to try to stop a vote on this. And also, the president brought in key people who signed a discharge petition to force a vote on the floor. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the hope had been leading up to the swearing in of Adelita Grijalva that the White House might be able to peel off a few of the few Republicans that had joined the discharge petition. That could not happen. They just could not convince people like Lauren Boebert of Colorado, for example. And Adelita Grijalva waited a good long time before she was sworn in, and the underlying dynamics of this did not change. And Republicans, meanwhile, were not in front of this in any vocal way, trying to defend the need to keep these files secret any further. It just felt like status quo, with the White House unable to, break off Democrats who had really sensed, I think, earlier this summer, hey, the president seems to be pretty uncomfortable with releasing this. Let's find out what's in it.
Yeah, and to be clear, the president could have ordered them released anytime he wanted, correct?
That's right. That's my understanding, is that this is something that has been out there. It's been one of the main talking points for Republicans all along, is that, hey, the Biden administration had this and they kept it under wraps. Implicit in that is the idea that the president, his Justice Department, is able to do something. It just hasn't happened.
And so talk to us too. Some people may be a little bit confused because we're seeing the release of a lot of the so-called emails between Jeffrey Epstein and various people. Those have been released by the House Oversight Committee. What's the difference between what's being released, or what we're seeing being released right now, and what the documents that they want from the DOJ?
I think what they want is the full investigative file. They want, at least that has always been the public claim. We want everything out there. And the presumption has been this is going to be very bad for Democrats, starting with perhaps Bill Clinton and splashing all over the field. The Democrats, I think, have realized that the president is uncomfortable with this. They want to know what's in there as it relates to the president. And so there's this sense that there is a wide universe of documents that should just all be out there. What they passed this week is not something, though, that will go that far. It is something that seems to have quite a bit of space for people to figure out if there's something that they want to hold back.
Yeah, a lot of loopholes there. We'll get into that here in just a second. But one of the interesting reactions from the president this week after signing that bill, which I don't really think he had much of an option to veto this bill after what we saw the the vote margin. There's only one Republican lawmaker, Higgins from Texas, who voted against this bill in the House. But one of the interesting reactions was the president saying Democrats are really going to resent this and regret their decision on this because they're going to be looking into that. And some of the names we've heard connected to Jeffrey Epstein, I don't hear, at least from my Democratic sources, anybody's going to put up any kind of defense or fight for anybody there. They don't care. They just want these documents released, and whoever gets caught up in it, it's too bad for them.
Yeah, I think Democrats sort of parted ways with Bill Clinton a generation ago at this point. So the party has moved on. Everyone below that is not nearly as important. Certainly the people who we hear frequently for presidential chatter, they have not to this point been dogged by this. We did see the effort to try and rebuke Stacey Plaskett, someone who is a lower profile member of the House who had been in conversation with Jeffrey Epstein ahead of a congressional hearing. Those are kind of second order or lesser figures in all this. The main concern, though, is the person sitting in the White House right now. There's still a lot that we don't know about the nature of their relationship.
Yeah, another Democrat like Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary under Clinton, worked in the Obama administration. He got caught up in all this weird exchange of emails there. No love lost from Democrats. Are not saying, well, it's too bad he got caught up in this. I don't get that, at least from the sources I'm talking to.
Yeah, same. I don't think that people like Larry Summers are in great standing with the party anyway. He was someone who had been relatively moderate to conservative in terms of his economic ideals that he was relating, especially early on as it concerned inflation during the Biden administration. The just underlying issue here of inappropriate sexual relations, especially for somebody who was in a very high position at Harvard University at the time. This is something that Democrats have not just reflexively defended for a while now.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about our Arizona's congressional delegation on this. Now, for me, it appeared, with the exception of Andy Biggs, who came out he said he would vote to release the files like a day or two before the president went ahead and cleared his Republican caucus to go ahead and vote the way they wanted to on this. It seemed like, Republicans only got really brave and said they would vote for this or pledge their vote for this after the president had cleared them on this.
Yeah, I think that's mostly the case. We didn't hear anything, for example, from Paul Gosar. Yeah. This is somebody who once upon a time in 2019 had sort of deflected attention from the first impeachment matter involving Donald Trump by noting that Epstein didn't kill himself and went on Fox News talking about, hey, there's some concerns there. I don't know what that was all about. Through this matter, he has been silent. We did see earlier in the year, like about February, Eli Crane was someone who was wanting, more disclosure about the Epstein matter. But I think that was before everyone sensed, wait, the White House may not want this stuff out. So for Republicans, it was largely a measure of, opening the door to something that they really didn't do with great stomach. In Andy Biggs' case, I think his point is, especially lately pointing to the Stacey Plaskett matter, hey, this is a Democratic problem. This is not just Republicans, and the Democrats are hypocritical.
Yeah. And let's wrap on this point. You read the bill, I read the bill. There are plenty of loopholes in this. I mean, for people are getting excited, like, oh, in 30 days, they're going to have to disclose these documents, put it in a downloadable, searchable form online. We're going to get all the information. I'm here to tell you, I think you would agree. It's like, don't get your hopes up on that if that's what you want.
Yeah, I think that there's always an exception for things like pending investigations, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has already indicated that she is inclined to take up an investigation on at least some of these matters. That by itself creates a pretty big gap in what might be released. There's also continuing concerns about victims and disclosures relating to them. So given the squeamishness from the White House from the jump on this, don't be surprised if we get less than 100% transparency.
All right, Ron Hansen from the Republican, we're going to have to end it right there, but thanks for stopping by here. And still ahead, President Trump thought he found a way to tilt the midterm election in his favor, but it might just blow up in his face. Plus, a former state lawmaker admits forging signatures to try to get on the ballot when Politics Unplugged continues.
It was another week of political shenanigans, both inside and outside the courtroom. President Trump took a loss on redistricting and called for an Arizona senator to face the death penalty. While here locally, a former lawmaker admitted he tried to forge his way onto the ballot. This is your political roundup. A federal court banned Texas from using its newly drawn and Republican-friendly congressional map. The ruling is a major setback for President Trump's plan to tip next year's midterm elections in favor of the GOP. The governor of the Lone Star State is appealing. The president called on Arizona Senator Mark Kelly and 5 other Democrats to face trial and arrest for sedition and potentially face the death penalty. Trump sounded off on the Democrats after they'd urged members of the military to ignore unconstitutional orders. And finally, a former Republican state lawmaker admitted he tried to fake his way onto the ballot. Austin Smith pleaded guilty to forging more than 100 signatures to qualify for last year's election. Under Smith's plea agreement, he'll pay a $5,000 fine, serve probation, and take a 5-year timeout from running for office.
And let's bring in our panel to talk about all of that. Democratic consultant Don Penich and Republican Chip Scutari. Thank you both for being here. Now, I just want to cap and finish up the long week of Epstein stuff and get your guys' expert opinion. You guys are experts in public relation, in political strategy. We'll start with you, Chip. Did the administration kind of drop the ball on this? This is something they obviously didn't want to talk about, but it seemed like with every step, they just kept raising the profile on this story.
Well, first I want to say I hope the women and the young ladies get justice. That's the most important thing out of this. But on the PR messaging, yes, Donald Trump was clearly bothered by his name being mentioned probably several times in these files. We don't know and no one's accusing him of any wrongdoing. But by making sure that Adelita Grijalva was not sworn in, that raised the issue again. And I think this could be a symbol of Trump's waning power with the GOP. I mean, I think he still has a strong grip on the party, but not a vice grip, because you see that with redistricting. You see it with the filibuster. The Senate said thanks, but no thanks. And you see with other issues where they're like, hey, he's not going to be on the ballot again. We have to be a little bit more independent. So I think the Epstein, when you look at the messaging, is kind of emblematic of Trump's status right now with the party. And he, for the first time probably in his political career, he's not sure where he is with his base.
And do you think this is a good moment for the Democrats? Now, I think we all agree with Chip. I mean, the politics aside, we hope the victims in this case do get justice. But there is the political question here. As a Democrat, you're looking at this. Was this a self-inflicted wound that you can take advantage of? And do Democrats now feel like they're in a better position today than they were a few weeks ago before the off-term elections and things like that?
Well, I think that this might not have been Trump's original goal for how this storyline was going to play out, but he is sure doing everything he can to now flip this into, I have always wanted this transparency, I'm 100% behind this. And so he's trying to turn this into a PR moment for himself. And we have seen, even though it's unbelievable at times, that he's successful at that a lot of times, of turning the PR moment back into his favor. And he certainly has enough people loyal to him to help repeat that message out on the airways and out in social media. But I continue to believe that we are not going to learn anything from these releases that Trump and his allies don't want us to learn. There are 100 loopholes built into this process. He has loyalist Pam Bondi steering the ship, and she's not going to allow anything to get out of active investigation or classification that, her higher ups don't want to see. And so how the Democrats can continue to work that is going to take really disciplined messaging around keeping up the drumbeat about what is being released and what isn't.
But it's incredible where the story was, say, 2 weeks ago to where it is now.
Oh, yeah,
where
absolutely.
all the Senate, the U.S. Senate said, no, we're going to vote to release these files. So what's interesting to me is looking ahead to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who pushed this thing from the get-go, and no one thought he had a prayer of getting it released. If there are others like them, hardcore conservative, respected in the MAGA world, that start breaking with President Trump just subtly, That's something to look for in the next 2 or 3 months.
And to Don's point, what happens, how do Republicans react if they don't get the information that they want out of these files? Because, I mean, there is a lot of speculation. There's a lot of agreement that, Pam Bondi in the Trump administration is not going to release anything it doesn't want released.
My advice to any Republican or Democrat is just be a truth seeker. Say, we want all the information, don't hide it. This is no more gamesmanship. We want the answers for our constituents and for the American people, and just let the cards play out.
All right, let's talk a little bit about redistricting. This is something it really looks like, this is an idea with Trump. He was challenging states like Texas to give him just 5 more congressional seats because the Republicans are worried about keeping control of the House or whatnot. But it might just, again, blow up in his face. We had a court ruling this past week, lower court rulings being appealed, where Texas's newly redrawn maps, the court found, were not constitutional. They were racially gerrymandered. Right. It's, again, being appealed, but it's incredible when you think about it that going into the year, Trump was trying to pick up seats, but he may now end up losing seats because of what we saw in California. Your reaction?
That's right. So California can move forward. Texas is now undoubtedly going to the Supreme Court, and it's probably the kind of decision, because of the impact it will have, that they would fast track and try to get an answer to us. But keep in mind that, let's say that Trump does lose the entire Texas prospect. Other states that would only pick up 1 or 2 Republican seats are primed for redistricting efforts themselves and have been getting ready in case they get called off the bench. And so I'm sure that the Trump administration is continuing to watch this and work with the states that were willing to do this. Pick up 1, pick up 2, North Carolina, Ohio, to see if someone else can come in and save the day here.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for that appeal, but it's not just Texas. And we've seen in Indiana, there's a bit of a rebellion there. Republicans aren't moving forward with redistricting plans there. What's your take from this?
Well, Dennis, the #1 rule for politicians, rule of thumb, is self-preservation. And some of these Republicans in Indiana and other states like their safe red districts or blue districts, and by carving up the map and gerrymandering, it can cause problems for an incumbent, meaning they have to campaign harder, they have to raise a lot more money, so it's not a slam dunk. So they may be pushing back on the Trump administration behind the scenes, saying, hey, we're good here, we don't have to do this.
Yeah, and last thing on this, and it looks like some of those districts they were carving out, maybe different political realities now because what we saw in the midterm elections, correct?
Texas?
In Texas and other places, particularly when you start looking at Hispanic, a lot of districts with a lot of Hispanic voters and whatnot. These were based on the 2024 projections, but now what we saw in the midterms is there's a lot of changes with the electorate right now.
Absolutely. So between market factors, the price, the cost of living, immigration raids, all of these unpopular things that Trump is doing, those aren't necessarily in the bag.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take a quick break right now, and when we come back, President Trump says Arizona Senator Mark Kelly and other Democratic lawmakers should be tried for sedition and potentially hanged. That's next on Politics Unplugged. And to get more in depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast. This week, I'm joined by Democratic consultant Adam Kinsey. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening, wherever you get your podcasts. And let's bring back the panel now. Still got a lot to talk about. Let's talk a little bit, get your reaction from President Trump calling for Senator Mark Kelly and others to potentially be hanged. Just get your reaction to that. This is for, because apparently they put out a video, it was about a 90-second video where they were urging members of the military that it's okay and they should disobey unlawful illegal orders.
Right, and this is the law of the land. This is very clear in UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the law of the land for the military in particular. So this is existing, well-established law, and so it's remarkable, but I guess less so in these days in which we live, that a president is calling for the death penalty for members of Congress and former service members and intelligence officers themselves for making a video stating the fact of our laws. That is called sedition and traitorous is unbelievable. But, there have been criticism that, why did they come out with this video? Well, this was just a PR stunt. But I disagree and feel that in a state in America where National Guard are being called into cities, where we are talking about, the Trump administration talking about militarizing polling locations in the upcoming elections, then for these folks who have served in uniform to ensure that the new generation of service members understand and are aware of that law, just because you get taught that at some level of school doesn't mean it's on the forefront. So to start a conversation among service members, I think, was much more than just a PR stunt.
It was interesting too, just in typical Trump fashion, they're not backing down. I mean, his spokeswoman, Carolyn Leavitt, is backing up the president. Republican House Speaker Johnson is also defending the president on this.
Yes, he is. And he backtracked a little bit yesterday. He had some strong, but this all stems from the bombing or the gunning down of boats that allegedly have drugs on it. A lot of people, including Rand Paul, Republican senator of Kentucky, have said, hey, we don't know what's going on. So there's a lot of questions. So I do think it was a bit of a PR move, but it's getting the issue out in front, and Trump took the bait. President Trump took the bait, overreacted. It was a very irresponsible social truth post. And I think that's going to raise this issue again, much like the Epstein Files. This issue will be on the table in the next month or so.
And it's kind of interesting too, because they do have a well-oiled PR machine, and it seems like they want to be talking about this issue again, maybe distracting from other things like previous topics we were talking about. Correct?
Right, flooding the pipeline. This is a Steve Bannon tactic that works every time, and they love it. And the more you can get people distracted over here, the less they're talking about this. The fact that this happens the same week as the Epstein vote and all of that, we can assume is not accidental.
All right, let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk local politics here. We had a former lawmaker, Austin Smith. I believe he worked for Turning Point at one point, USA, had to plead guilty in court to forging a bunch of signatures to try to get on the ballot. And initially, when reports of this came out, he called this a ludicrous and ridiculous assertions. But here he is admitting in the well of the court that he did forge signatures to get on the ballot.
Yeah, which isn't really surprising because he came of age in the election denialism movement after the 2020 election. So it's kind of ironic, kind of sad that he was putting dead people's names on the petition. And people, the plaintiff in the case said this was so amateurish, it was laughable, he was going to get caught. So maybe he thought he was too cool and too smart to get away with it. But now he can't run for 5 years. I would think his political career is done at this point.
And his opponents are quick to point out some of the irony going on here, because he is part of that wing and has raised a lot of questions about the elections, correct?
That's right. The irony is delicious here. Many of his ilk are talking about election security and throwing out triple the number of signatures in our most recent county elections than ever before. And instead of going after, someone who actually forged and has now admitted guilt, we're worrying about whether, grandma's signature has changed over the years when she's signing her ballot.
Let's wrap on that. I mean, I saw this story too, like the number of signatures that were being tossed out under heap in this off-year election we just saw tripled. Is this something that is concerning moving into the midterms? Yeah,
I think the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors will take a long, hard look at this because we want free and fair elections. We don't want any disfranchisement of votes. And I think what's happening with my Gen Z kid, they don't use cursive. So a lot of this could be younger voters who just their signatures look like a 4 or 5-year-old. So that could be part of it, but they have to come to agreement. So this midterm election is going to be highly scrutinized. So we have to get to the bottom of it, make sure it's done right.
And is this something you're preparing for too, heading into the midterm election, with a higher number of these ballots being tossed out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we already saw this in this election where this tripling of thrown out votes came up. Organizations, voter protection groups, advocacy groups are gearing up to figure out how to help cure ballots, how to help make sure that voters understand that this is happening. Voter education is huge.
All right, we're going to have to end it right there. That is all the time we have this week, but be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.